Okay, Charles, let's come up to date with CBDC.
Yes, thank you, Mike. And in particular, we'll start actually with the forecast, the precious metals forecast by the London Bullion Market Association for this year. Worth looking at because of particularly what's been happening with gold, but significantly they cite the top three drivers for the gold price this year as being US monetary policy, central bank activity, and geopolitical risks. And I think the question that falls out of that is how separate are those three things? But the World Gold Council has simultaneously, 28th March, published, or rather updated its document, Gold as a Strategic Asset, the 2024 edition. And this is where we see the process of nudge that I was speaking about last year continue to affect itself. We talk about the ESG credentials and contributions. And specifically, they say that gold has a potential role to play in reducing investor exposure to climate-related risks. In fact, gold's lack of downstream emissions has important implications, as gold holdings can reduce the overall carbon intensity of the portfolio value. Anyway, they go on in this vein. Now, why would they be talking about this? Well, it seems likely that the reason is to further nudge people into the position of considering not so much physical gold, which has reached a record high price shown on screen now, 1970 being on the left-hand side of the graph up to 2024, but the move away from physical gold to digital gold, which you may remember I reported on late last year as being something that might potentially back a central bank digital currency. The other part of that report was to do with the consultation into CBDC, or particularly the digital pound, run by the Bank of England and the Treasury. They have produced a response, admittedly, a couple of months ago, but I thought I would share some of the results of it with you. In effect, I should remind you that this is still, as the House of Lords put it, a solution in search of a problem. In effect, they've been completely unable to justify why a digital pound is necessary. In the last sentence here, whichever way you choose to pay, you can always trust the value of the money you're spending or receiving. A £10 note in your hand will always be worth £10 in your bank account. So in effect, they're sort of shooting themselves in the foot at the same time as trying to sell the thing. But what I thought was, of the 50,000 plus responses, there was a recurring theme from it. And I'll just read a few quotes. The majority of responses commented on the broader societal implications of introducing retail CBDC, such as the future of cash and the privacy and rights of users of a digital pound. They go on again. Others raise concerns about important issues such as the potential impact on privacy, access to cash, and freedom of choice. So again, the same thing coming up, but later on. Many respondents raised concerns about the implication of such a digital pound for access to cash, users' privacy, and control of their money. So what this indicates really is that of the 50,000 respondents, which is a good total, I would say, by any account, it means that people's messages really couldn't have been sort of effectively buried by the Bank of England or the Treasury because they were so numerous. Anyway, they go on. And again, to sort of open themselves up to the fundamental failings, the bank, as an operator of the core infrastructure, would not have access to personal data. Private sector digital pound wallet providers, payment interface providers, PIPs, would anonymise personal data before transactions are processed and settled by the bank. The bank and HM Treasury would also not pursue government or central bank initiated programmable functions. So they're working very hard here to allay concerns about privacy, about technical failures and programming and all that sort of thing. But I would say that they are failing because they're not actually addressing the fundamental issue of handing control of part of the process over to a third party over which they have absolutely no control. They don't know where that data is going to go. They don't know that those technical platforms are going to be up to whatever it is they're going to manage them. And that is giving the Treasury and the Bank of England the benefit of the doubt in the first place and suggesting that they will be able to do a better job of it at all. So still in no way convincing whatsoever. But in conclusion, what they state is that the decision as to whether to build a digital pound will be made around the middle of the decade at the earliest as the design phase draws to a close. That decision will draw on extensive engagement with stakeholders across all of society. Well, I wonder how that's going to affect itself. Throughout the design phase, as part of the development of the digital pounds blueprint, the national conversation on the future of money and the parliamentary scrutiny of the bank and HM Treasury's design work. So to summarise what they've said in this response, it does, I would say, look very much like they have rode back on their initial bravado, which they sort of seem to lay the case out for CBDC with. So it does suggest that at least at this point, the responses that have been received from the 50,000 or so that came in have really stopped and made them think. And I think that's gone hand in hand with what the House of Lords have done with some committee hearings in the Houses of Parliament. So the tide has the potential to at least be stemmed, if not change direction. However, what I would issue as a note of caution is that they are, again, continuing to suggest, or at least lay the groundwork for there being some sort of a seismic change. And having listened to what Mike was talking about earlier, with effectively the potential bankruptcy of nations by continuing NATO activities, it would be that sort of activity that would allow or would set the conditions for the abolition of cash and the total restructuring of the financial system. So this is definitely not going away, but what they are yet to find is a very well articulated argument for justifying it. But this is something that they will continue to pursue.
Yes, indeed.